All right, guys, welcome back to Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are at our preview and prediction for the Alamo Bowl between two Big 12 teams in BYU and Colorado. Obviously, the bowl tie-ins are still specific to what they were in the past, meaning Colorado is the Pac-12's representative in this year's bowl game. They're 3-point favorites, 56.5 to the total, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, December 28th, from the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. Getting things started with the Colorado offense going up against the BYU defense. This is a great matchup here because, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, they're both going to play in their final game before going on to be top 5 picks in April's draft. Shedeur having an elite year. Looks like Hunter's going to win the Heisman Trophy. We'll find that out here in a couple of days, but almost 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, 8 picks for Shedeur. I mean, this is a passing attack that just provides so much stress. His 74% completion rating, highly accurate quarterback. This is a team that can hurt you with screens due to their athletes they have, and of course downfield, Hunter with his elite hands. Wester is a great playmaker with 70 receptions for 80 and 10 scores. And then Jimmy Horn and Will Sheppard also have 430-plus receiving yards there, going up against the BYU secondary that has played quite well this year. I mean, there's 20 interceptions. That's the top mark in college football. I mean, that's a phenomenal number. That's no fluke, Nick, because they've had an interception in every single game this year. It's a great secondary. They're phenomenal at making plays. They've only allowed over 250 yards twice this year. Once was a blowout over Arizona, and then a close victory on the road against Baylor. Those were early on in the season. This is a great secondary, Nick. I love what they bring to the table. You do have some guys in the portal you have to watch to see if they play, like Micah Harper, Crew Wakely as well. So those are two guys that you'll want to monitor. Tanner Waldo, Jacob Robinson, those are going to be your best players. Marquis Collins as well. This is a very good secondary, Nick. They make a lot of plays going up against an efficient Buffalo's passing attack. Can't wait to see how this one plays out. Who has the ultimate edge?
I'm very excited for this matchup between this high-flying offense versus a pretty solid secondary that's got some good performances. Shedeur Sanders having a phenomenal season. 74% comp rate, really impressive. Nearly 4,000 yards passing, 35 touchdowns. 7.7% TD ratio, really good number there. 327 yards per game through the air, about 3 passing touchdowns per game as well. Certainly respect Shedeur and Travis Hunter for playing in this game. I have a lot of respect in athletes that play in this game despite them having high draft stock, high draft value. I think it makes a lot of sense to do so. This is a great show. This is a really good matchup on the national stage. The Alamo Bowl is always a pretty good game. There's been some really good classics the last couple of years. And I think Deion Sanders wants his guys to play in this game, and I really do respect that. I think it's something that he's taking a page out of some other legendary coaches that want their players to play and avoid opt-outs. I really do respect that from this Colorado offense and this Colorado team as a whole. Hunter obviously plays both sides of the ball phenomenally, really good receiver, 1,100 yards receiving, 14 touchdowns, about 96 yards per game in receiving yards, really impressive number. Most likely going to win the Heisman. I would still pick Chanty right now, but I can certainly see the case for Travis Hunter. LeJontay Wester, Will Sheppard, Jimmy Horn are all really good receivers this team. Wester with 10 touchdowns, Sheppard with 6, I think is a very impressive number. When I look at this BYU secondary, I think Tanner Wall's a great safety, really good coverage asset for this team, who's been strong. 50 total tackles for him, 3 picks. Really good numbers there. I think he's a really good coverage blanket. I like what I've seen out of him. A solid piece. Obviously, if Micah Harper does not play, that's definitely a bit of a loss for this defensive unit. But Jacob Robinson, I like what he can do. 40 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 3 picks, 5 pass breakups. And then Marquis Collins, 22 total tackles, 8 tackle for loss, and 8 pass breakups for him. Really intriguing matchup here. This is a stingy pass defense going against one of the nation's best passing attacks. They're giving up roughly about 180 yards per game through the air. BYU is. Interesting matchup. I think Colorado can certainly take advantage of that, though.
One matchup that we want to see someone take advantage of is the offensive line that's 123rd in sacks allowed, going up against a pass rush that's 123rd in sacks this year. Neither team are really good in that category. One can't pass protect, the other one can't get to the passer. I think this is going to certainly favor Colorado. They're dead last in rushing the football. In BYU, of course, they have a pretty good run defense led by Tyler Beatty. Nice linebackers Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker as well. So that's going to be the matchup too, Nick. To help out the secondary, can they rush the passer? And I just don't think they're going to be able to. I think Beatty can probably win often because he's a phenomenal defensive end, but I don't think just one guy is going to completely dominate this game against the Buffalo. So I certainly think that Shedeur and his weapons are going to have plenty of time to cook in this contest.
This is quite an interesting matchup because when you look at it, the top two sack getters for BYU are their linebackers, Kelly and Isaiah Glasker, which I don't think is a really good sign. The defensive line cannot produce sacks at all. Kelly has 5, Glasker has 3.5, 14 total tackles for loss for Glasker and 10 for Kelly. I think it's a very interesting matchup. This Colorado offensive line, we worried about it in the preseason. It's held up well at times, but it's also struggled at times. You let rattle off the stats there. It's a unit that's had some issues, but this is a weaker pass rush. I think they can find some success as long as they give Shedeur some time in that backfield. I think they will have success through the air. They're going to have a big day out of Glasker because he's really been solid for this team. Kelly as well. I don't really trust this defensive line to get sacks. I think Tyler Beatty is probably the best piece in the defensive line with 55 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, but he's not really that productive in the backfield, a guy that's better at stopping the run than really pass rushing. Blake Magnuson's an okay piece as well with 37 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. I think this is a matchup that's winnable for Colorado. I think this offensive line certainly has a lot of work going in the future, and I wonder what that will look like in the coming years. But this is a patchwork offensive line where they added a lot of different pieces, including a true freshman and Jordan Seaton at left tackle. So there's been a lot of question marks at offensive line, but I do agree with you. I think they have the matchup advantage here. This is just a bad BYU pass rush.
Yeah, BYU's defense, they've only allowed 400-plus yards twice this year. It's a good defense. They force a lot of turnovers, and they always seem to capitalize on them as well. So this will be a fun, intriguing matchup. Moving to the BYU offense against the Buffalo's defense. This group put about 31 points per game. Pretty solid, passing. Jake Retzloff, under 60%, but, 2,800 yards, 26 total touchdowns, and 11 picks. He's had a bit of a turnover problem himself this year, but this has been a serviceable quarterback through the air. He's been able to make some tough plays in in hard situations, and he's done a pretty impressive job as a runner as well with 388 yards. You're typically going to get some solid runs for first downs from him. Colorado's run defense, they've not been all that bad this year. I know against Kansas they got absolutely blitzed in that one, but other than that, they've been pretty solid for the most part. That's the only game this year they've given up over 200 yards in. And it's a revamped D-line that I think has been phenomenal, led by B.J. Green, Amari McNeil, Samuel Onkalola. Chidozie Nwankwo was a phenomenal run stopper. Arden Walker and Shane Cokes have been good in that category as well. So this is a much improved defensive line for Colorado, and I think that they're, this is a team that led the conference in sacks. They have a great pass rush. Solid BYU offensive line. They're not bad. Only 30th in sacks allowed. They do have some weaknesses, like at the left side. Caleb Etienne, I think, is a little vulnerable there. And then at left guard, Waylon Lapacho is also maybe a bit of a vulnerability. But this is going to be a tough physical group at the end of the day, Nick. This will be a fun battle in the trenches. What do you think Retzloff's going to be able to provide, though? Because I don't know if this run game's going to really be clicking that much.
Serviceable passing attack here. Retzloff's been a good enough quarterback for this offense. Below 6% comp rate is a bit concerning. About 2,800 yards passing, 20 touchdowns to 10 picks. The 10 interceptions, certainly concerning, but he does have his options on the ground as well. 388, 4.2, and 6 scores for him on the ground this season. Like I said, a serviceable quarterback that's able to get the job done, lead the way for this offense. They're averaging about 238 yards per game through the air, 1.8 touchdowns per game, while also averaging 180 yards per game on the ground. So good enough. This defensive line for Colorado, this has been a much improved unit, and they really have been strong against the run, which was a big key success for this defense. 150 yards per game given up on the ground, 3.8 yards per carry. A physical unit. I think Arden Walker's been really good for this team. 31 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, while BJ Green has been a really solid add out of the transfer portal. 30 total tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks for him. He leads the team in both categories there, at least in sacks. He's tied for the team lead in tackles for loss. I think the linebackers have been solid at getting up and being involved in the pass rush as well. Nikhil Hill-Green has been really solid with that. 82 total tackles and 12 tackles for loss for him, 2 sacks. Good numbers there. Amari McNeil's been solid at times as well. 25 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. I like this pass rush to have success here, attack this offensive line, and put up some decent numbers here. This is a really good unit.
They have some nice weapons as well. Chase Roberts, Darius Lassiter, Keelan Marion's going to be your receiving trio. These are good players. Nothing Colorado probably hasn't seen this year, and that includes Travis Hunter, certainly going to go out there and play a hard game. DJ McKinney at the other corner spot's been having a good year as well. So you're just really going to have to see what happens in the slot. Preston Hodge, he's been, not all that good. He's been a poor tackler, pretty shaky in coverage as well. So that matchup with him and Roberts in the slot will be certainly one to monitor. I think this should be a good matchup, though, Nick, because I think with Colorado, they're going to slow down the run. They've only allowed 200-plus once in this game. I think L.J. Martin will have a respectable showing. I think they'll be able to stay ahead of the sticks. But Retzloff's going to have to win this game, whether that's with his legs against man coverage. I think that's a big key to this contest is for BYU to be able to make plays in that regard. But Colorado's also pretty solid when it comes to takeaways. They're ninth in that regard. Pretty underrated how good they've been at forcing turnovers. So I think this is a good matchup. Colorado's defense, they're not bad at all. Other than that Kansas game, they've really not been much of a liability, and they've really checked the boxes against the pass. They haven't given up a single 300-yard game through the air this season. This will be a competitive matchup, though, Nick, because BYU, they're incredibly resilient. And those turnovers they get, and they're going to get them in this game, I promise, at least one or two. They always seem to put 6 points on the board when they get a turnover, so that's a couple of points you could typically count on for BYU. For some reason, if they don't get the turnovers, though, Nick, it's going to be hard for this offense to keep up.
They're going to have to force turnovers, this defense, to be involved in this game, in my opinion. But I think this Colorado defense can force turnovers as well. I think they have a good secondary unit. Obviously, Travis Hunter is a key piece of that unit. 4 interceptions for him, 11 pass breakups. He's really good in coverage. Also has 32 total tackles, a solid piece. Some other decent pieces there. Shiloh Sanders has been good for this team when he's played this year, while Solomon Craig has been solid leading the team in 88 total tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3 pass breakups. Great numbers there. LJ Martin's a really good back, but will he have success against this pretty strong Colorado run defense? I'm not so sure. Martin, 630 for him and 5 touchdowns. I think if they're going to win this game, Retzlaff's going to have to be dominant through the air and attacking that man coverage like you alluded to. I think that makes a lot of sense. I like what this secondary has for Colorado. I think they have the advantage here overall. This is a good run defense and a strong pass defense as well. I think it's a good unit, allowing 22 points per game. I like what they could do. They get a lot of sacks. The cornerbacks are solid as well. The takeaways are certainly a good number. I'm expecting 1 or 2 picks here for this Colorado defense that will certainly swing the tide in their direction.
Now we move to team comparisons and our final prediction for the Alamo Bowl. I'm giving all the defensive edges to BYU. I think I might change the secondary to even, though. I give BYU the respect for being able to force as many turnovers as they do, and they're pretty sound. But Colorado, I alluded to, they haven't allowed a 300-yard game this year, and I think they're probably more talented, obviously, at their starting cornerback positions than maybe BYU is, even though Jacob Robinson and Evan Johnson are pretty good players. And they also have, guys at linebacker that can play a lot of slot, that being Isaiah Glasker, and Tanner Wall's been productive. So I'll probably call that one even, if anything. But those are those on the side of the screen. Quarterback and wide receiver, a big edge for Colorado. I'm going to pick them to win this game, Nick. It's just hard to envision a team that returns for a bowl game. 2 guys going top 5 in the draft. You never see that nowadays. They're going to be playing with great energy. They're going to be happy for the opportunity here. It's going to be a big fan base in favor, I think, of Colorado. I think there's a lot of fans in that Dallas area. They're going to make their way down to the Buffs to support the Sanders family and the final game with them together here at the collegiate level. 35-30, I think BYU, they're just so resilient. They've been incredibly competitive this year. They're not just going to fade away. And in bowl games, things are a little bit more wackier than in the regular season, Nick. So I know Colorado's defense, they're much better than allowing 30 points, as is the Cougars. But I see we're a bit of a shootout here and some wacky plays, maybe some special teams scores. BYU's did that a few times this year. Shootout for me, shootout for you as well. Colorado, though, high confidence points on this one to get the job done.
Certainly high confidence points in Colorado here. I think you make a lot of fair points there. I think the only time really in recent memory where 2 top 5 picks from the same team did not opt out of the bowl game was Alabama with Bryce Young and Will Anderson. They both played in the Sugar Bowl against Kansas State, and Alabama, they eventually ran away with that one in the second half and pulled away from Kansas State and really put up some nice numbers there down in New Orleans. I think it's going to be a similar shootout here, a high scoring affair. I think this is a Colorado offense that's really potent and can attack this BYU defense. There'll be some turnovers. Alamo Bowls in the past have had some wacky ones. I think about the TCU Oregon game, about 10 years ago, where there was that massive comeback in that one, where I think of some other high-scoring affairs between Colorado and Texas in previous years. I think Washington, Texas had a great game in the Alamo Bowl as well. So I think this is a fun matchup. Always a bowl game I look forward to. The San Antonio venue, the Alamo Dome, is a really good venue hosting the Final Four this upcoming year as well. A solid venue in San Antonio. I think it's going to be a good fan attendance from Colorado. I bet BYU will travel well as well. I think those fans will show out and support their team one last time. A lot of fan favorites on that team this year that have cemented themselves as legends for the Cougars. I like Colorado on this one. I think it's going to be a fun matchup. I have high confidence points on this one. I just think this Colorado team is going to go out there and want to make a statement. They're going to get a lot of national love as well from the national media. ESPN, I'm sure, will talk about this game over and over again on First Take and all those other shows if Colorado, in the lead up to it and certainly after, if Colorado wins. I like this matchup a lot. I'll take the Buffs here. They'll cover the spread. A lot of confidence points on that one.
Yeah, the Alamo Bowl typically has a lot of crazy results, very interesting games. Colorado's made appearances in 2016 and 2020. They lost both those games by 30-plus points. Looking for some great redemption here to really put this program back on the map, because Alamo Bowl is kind of a prestigious bowl, Nick. It's typically one that features 2 teams that are, pretty high profile, that weren't able to, put the punches away to make the playoff and whatnot. So these are typically 2 very good teams, and that's what we're getting here, another great matchup.
Great matchup. Very excited for this one. I think it's going to be a really must-watch television. I think on December 28th, you got to tune in and catch this one in prime time. A really good matchup here.
Make sure you guys watch. Like you said, watch prime time. Make sure you guys comment, like, subscribe. See you next time.